morning. Today we're going to be talking about second language activization. So before we get started, I want you all to pretend that you only speak Spanish or you speak another language other than English. And we're learning new vocabulary, so you're learning English as a second language. And I'm going to show you a picture, and I want you to process how a student who's learning English as a second language would learn this, how they have to kind of like process through, they see what it is, and then they think about it in their language and then transfer it to English. So the first picture, so just take some time to process through what you think it is, how you think they would go through it, and then in a few seconds I'll have someone raise their hand and tell me what it is. Does someone want to tell me what it is? Monica? Yes. All right, the second picture, go through the same process. Benny, do you?
It looks like a toothbrush with no toothpaste, but it's a hairbrush.
Yes, good. And one last picture. Does someone want to tell me what it is? Sarah?
Could be washcloths or towels.
Yes, very good. So, just like, I know it might have been a little awkward at times, just like for that kind of long pause, because like we all speak English obviously, and so we like know what it is right away, but for those students that don't know English as their first language, it can take a little bit longer, and we need to give them that time to process it. Alright, so our objectives for today, we're going to have a definition of the second language activization, and then a little bit of the background of it. There's 5 different stages in SLA, and then how it should look in the classroom. So, according to the American Speech Language Hearing Organization, second language activization is learning a second language after a first language is already established. And according to our book, it takes about 10 years to be able to really process a second language and be where your native speaking language is. And also from an article by Elaine Tyrone, she gives info about how second language acquisition started in about 1925. And when they first started dealing with it, they thought of it more as a science than related it to English. But as you come more in today, it's becoming a lot more popular. There's about 11 million students in the classrooms who are learning English as a second language. So now we're going to go over the 5 stages. So we have pre-production. This is the first stage that they go to. This is more of their silent period because they're still trying to acquire the language. They have about a 500 vocabulary language. They don't have much oral language, and it's really encouraging if, like, in your classroom you either have an older person that you buddy up with them that either speaks that language with them or even just speaks English so they can encourage them. In early pre-production, this lasts about 4 to 6 months, kind of depending how fast they learn and stuff. I'm sorry, let me turn that off. This is when they start using 1 to 2 word phrases, and their vocabulary comes up to about 1,000 words. They have language to serve different purposes. They benefit from use of objects and illustrations. So for example, listening activities are great. So maybe having like different centers, you would take them to a listening activity so they can listen to a book or something. Or small groups so they can hear other students discuss what's going on. Graphic organizers and charts are also very important. And also, it's very important to encourage these students during this time. And if they make a mistake, let them know it's okay, because we're all learning together. And when you make a mistake, you learn from your mistakes. So the third stage is speech emergence. And instead of correcting all the time, that discourages students a lot when, let's say a student's like, an example in the book was, I run really fast this weekend at my race. Instead of being like, oh, that was wrong, it needs to be like this, you can reply back by saying, oh, I'm so happy you ran fast today. So it's not like going out and being like, oh, you're wrong, but you're helping them. This is when they start speaking short sentences. There's also, their grammar isn't up to par yet, but they're getting there. They have about 3,000 words, and they are probably able to write some of them more of the shorter words, easy words. And then this usually stays up to 1 year, and depending, again, how the student learns or is going about it, it can be longer or shorter. So the fourth one is intermediate fluency. This can require students 3 or more years. This is really when they start getting like the grammar down, the speech, all those different things. It adds more words to listening, speaking, and writing vocabulary. And this is when they also become more successful in other subjects as well, because they're not so dependent on language fluency, so they're able to read a little better, and they may find another subject they like more. And they're also more confident in this stage, but also during writing, rough drafts is very, very important to encourage these students during this time. Just to let them know, like, hey, get this out here, and then I will help you when you write something or stuff like that. And also, if you're doing like a read aloud, students who learn English as a second language, it can be intimidating for them to read something out loud in English. So if you're going to do that, give them time to rehearse, or if they're in a play or something, make sure they feel confident in it and it's not like an embarrassing thing for them. The final stage is advanced fluency, and this is where they are able to converse in most informal settings. It's usually takes 4 to 9 years, so this is up to the stage where they'll be able to talk it. This is where they nearly reach native language ability, so they're almost fluent in both languages. And also they need ongoing support, because this is like a crucial time where they're learning and they want to get better. We also have BICS, which is basic interpersonal communication skills. And basically this is the time when the students learn like the simple skills up in their first 3 years. And then we have the CALP, which is cognitive academic language proficiency. And this takes much longer to learn. This is more of the long-term stuff that they're going to need. The grammar, spelling words, a lot of vocab words. And what's important about this is also to note that just because they are able to have conversations and talk with their friends and stuff does not mean that their reading and writing is going to be 100%, because they are getting used to, using like informal talking, and so their reading and writing, it could be much different. So don't assume just because, oh, you can hold a conversation, you can also read and write very well. All right, now I'm going to talk about a few things, how you can apply this to your classroom. It's important for you to know what's available to you when you have students who speak a different language. There's special services that are oftentimes available, such as like pull-out classes, where they will take a group of students who don't know English very well and have a reading group with them. There's also other things like that. There's also instructional support, which there's something called sheltered instruction, where this adjusts how much teaching vocabulary, connecting content to prior knowledge, and using visuals. Next we have technology, which is also key to have, because nowadays there's so many things that as a teacher you can use online, or things that you can have that students are able to use. Have patience and practice daily. It's really important when you're learning something to go over it constantly, and not being like annoying, but being repetitive in like different subjects and stuff. Also, just having patience with them and not just getting frustrated every time they mess it up, because it's going to take them a few years to fully grasp it. Have a buddy or friend system, like I mentioned earlier, especially in the pre-production stage, just to guide them along and know that they're not alone. There's different protocols according to Lowe, Gray, Maron, and Mormon. They wrote an article about all the different protocols, such as eye tracking and reaction time. And these are basically different kinds of tests that they used in a research project to see how ESL students would react to this. And also know students' cognition, so know which way they learn best. So when you are testing them or quizzing them on things, or you're teaching them, make sure if they like hands-on things, have hands-on things. If they do better testing or reading, make sure you have that for them as well. So today we have discussed the definition and background of second language acquisition, the 5 stages of SLA, and how it looks in a classroom. So now I have a little thing for us to do. If you want to pull out your device. Not one of the 5 stages of SLA. How long does it take to acquire a second language? In the pre-production stage, about how many vocabulary words does the student know? Which is not a strategy for the classroom.